Welcome to Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show, brought to you by Bull Realty, the show for property owners and business leaders. Host Michael Bull brings you market analysis, advice, and opportunities around Atlanta.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I am Michael Bull. You know, there's been a lot of development around Metro Atlanta, and sometimes people don't realize how much is really going on the south side of Atlanta. And my guest today is going to share with us what's going on. Please welcome Brent Randolph. He's with Randolph Williamson. He's joining us in Studio One. Brent, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us about Fayetteville and Peachtree City and Newnan. We hear there's a lot of business going on down there. How is performance of properties? What's vacancy and rentals like down there today?
I think if you look at our vacancies compared to a 5-year average, we well below, usually 2% below what the 5-year average is in vacancy numbers right now. Some of the markets, the industrial market is even much stronger, lower vacancies. So overall, the market's good, it's strong, the rates are holding. I don't think we've seen the bounce back in rates that we thought we would have over the course of time, looking at how far we are into the recovery. But we've had a good recovery. Our rates have recovered. Our vacancies are down, and absorption's been good. So
the rents on average are not up to what they were, say, in '07 yet?
I think they're approaching the '07 mark, but this far into a typical recovery, I think we would have expected to see appreciation beyond where we cut off in '07.
Yeah.
And I think we're now getting back just to that point and past it somewhat.
Yeah. And what are the drivers in those markets? Is it the airport? Is it the movie business? What do you see?
Well, I mean, the airport has been an economic engine to the south side and to Atlanta for a while. The movie industry is certainly a driver. And probably, if you want to talk about the single driver with the most attention today, certainly for the past 3 to 5 years, it's been the movie industry.
Yeah.
You know, it obviously Pinewood showed up 2013, acquired land, and has been busy expanding since then. There's other studios. There were other studios with a presence down in the south side before that. We had the studios over at Lakewood. Sonoy had a studio even before Pinewood made its presence known. And so now, in addition to other things that's happened in Atlanta, there's studios up in Union City. Mm-hmm. So the movie industry is active, and very thankful for it.
Yeah. How about new developments? What are you seeing down there?
You know, I think what we're seeing in a lot of cases, and depending on where you are, when I tend to think of the Southern Crescent, my definition perhaps is the core counties being Clayton, Fayette, and Coweta County. Now, obviously, there's other counties that are active, but when we see development down there, I think a lot of it is redevelopment. In the case of a Peachtree City that, for the most part, is developed out. It's a planned community, 40, 50 years old. From a residential perspective, we're full. There's just no more land right now sitting within the city limits that are to be used for development. Now, Fayette County as a whole has lots of land still to develop. The biggest opportunity probably on the south side, again, it would be Coweta with the land mass that it has. And if you measure that density, probably the least amount of density of the 3 counties that I just mentioned. But the development down there is good. I think typically the south side fights for its share. Mm-hmm. You know, when you look at the demographics of the North Atlanta, we really have to work to get folks to come. But I think when folks show up and take a look around, they see a great place to live, good place to work. But still, honestly, I think a lot of folks look at the Southern Crescent down there as almost a bedroom community, providing labor to the north side.
But it's a pretty vibrant community, and
Oh, absolutely.
it's amazing if you haven't been down there, if you're in development or investing real estate. So what would be hot in some of those markets, Brent, to develop? What's needed down there? More mixed use, multifamily a need, or?
Well, I think, to probably Fayette, Coweta, there's a reluctance to zone for multifamily. I think you go back and look at the growth of suburbia and the reason for that growth, and you think about the population that's in place today, and a lot of that population obviously was born, raised, grew up there, but there's a lot of folks that move there for the quality of life that's there today. They were inside, I'll say, 285, and then decided they wanted more space, they wanted a big green backyard, they wanted a place to raise a family. And those folks are still in place. And so when you start talking about multifamily, that's not what they necessarily always want to see. Right. Mixed use is something that creates, I think, tons of opportunity for us. But for the most part, you don't see a mixed-use stacked product down in Fayette, Coweta County. What you'll see, when it comes to residential housing, I don't do that, but you're going to see single-family homes, some townhomes, and even less multifamily.
And people getting around on golf carts.
Yeah, 80-something miles a path, I think, is the number in Peachtree City today, and they burn them up. So it's a great way. It's a good quality of life, but it does impact when you go to talk zoning and talk about denser developments, because there is a segment of that population that's located down there for that reason, and they wanted to avoid that. They wanted to avoid that density.
Yeah, and then they really quickly can get to the airport, right?
Yeah, now obviously the more folks that come and the more traffic, the longer it takes us, but that's been experienced across Atlanta. One of the great lines that I used to like to use talking to folks is basically Fayette County is a 30-minute car ride to the airport and then a plane ride to anywhere in the world. So we were very convenient.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, and I think sometimes you might think of too, you're going to maybe get more for your money down there. If you're putting a corporate headquarters in Metro Atlanta, it might be a good place to look.
When you look at cost of land comparatively to the north side, absolutely. If you look at the price of homes, my rule of thumb used to be somewhere in the 20%. I could look on the north side, find a comparable house on the south side, and expect to save a little money with that purchase. So I think that's still true. Yeah. Our travel times are certainly better, I know that.
Yeah. What about getting developments for projects down there? How are any of the municipalities, I can't say the word, cities, are any of them easier to deal with or worse to deal with down there when it comes to Fayetteville, Peachtree City, Newnan?
I think they all have their reputations. But in all honesty, I think what we've seen, or what I've seen, is that it's all a part of communication. It doesn't mean that you can talk anybody into anything, but if you've got a difficult project, if you've got a project you're trying to present that is going to create some controversy, the more time you can spend communicating that to the city leaders, the council members, even staff at the city, and explaining what you hope to create, I think you'll find them open and reasonable to development. Now, we get told no, but the other side of that is I've always found them to be reasonable to work with. They answer somewhat to some constituents that are going to vote every few years, so that certainly comes into play.
Well, what's the future look like for markets like Peachtree City?
I think it's bright. When you look at the south side, I'm always quick to throw out some real basic numbers. If you take Clayton, Fayette, and Coweta County, it's 800 square miles of land. The heaviest populated area would be Clayton County with I think it's 270 something thousand people today. Fayette County has an average a population of 110,000, and you've got Coweta over there, and I think 134. However, Cowetta's probably got half the land mass that I just mentioned, with about 446 square miles of land. So we've got plenty of room to develop. We've got governments, I think, that are attentive. They're listening, to all sides, trying to make wise decisions. I mean, I think there's, I was reading the other day, there's been a review of just about every land use plan down there by officials probably within the past 2 years. They're updating. I think they're looking at zoning. I think there's a real push, or there's a need, maybe is a better word, to begin to accommodate this millennial growth that's available to us. A couple years back, Fayette County particularly was noted to be losing we weren't retaining, maybe that's a better way to say it, we weren't retaining the number of millennials or attracting the number of millennials that our sister counties were. And we were probably 30-something% deficient. So there was some conversations and people beginning to look at how can we change that. I mean, I looked at a number a couple years back where the millennials were a quarter of our population. They had amassed a spending power. The number I saw was $200-something billion, and it's probably only grown since then. So it's not a segment of the community that you want to ignore. So I guess the thing that I've seen is we've begun to as a community to look at projects. Another factor I'll point out here is that a couple years ago, ARC forecasted Atlanta's general population to increase 2.5 to 3 million people in the next 30 years. I take it and do a little different. I looked at what does that mean to Fayette, Coweta, Clayton, the southern core. We're at 525,000 people right now. A 48% growth in over 30 years means that we moved to roughly 750,000 people in the same space. We're not going to expand the footprint for lots of reasons. And so now we've got to find a way to house an additional 250,000 people.
And that's if you grow as much as Metro Atlanta would grow in population, and how many people would go to the south side and understand the lifestyle of living down there, and then how open are the doors, like you said, the zoning, the not in my backyard, how open are the communities going to be there to more dense development and getting more people there?
Well, I think, as a government, they're going to be open. I mean, and I think when people really sit and look at it, now everybody reacts when it's in their backyard.
Right.
And you think about most people, their home is their single largest investment. They've said that for years, and it's something that they all want to protect. Right. So again, I think it's communication. It's people understanding that more development, more people is not necessarily bad. It certainly means larger revenue growth across the board, tax base, and then just general revenue within the areas. So I think you've got to sit and talk. You've got to understand that more people, more growth means more jobs, means more revenue, but it probably also means that we've got to develop somewhat differently than we have in the past, right. Which brings us to the mixed use, the multifamily. I think the days of just grading out a tract of land and laying the multifamily in there, throwing a pool in somewhere, and calling it a day are over. I think what I hear from the local leaders, we're looking for creative growth. Yeah. Don't roll it up. Show us something that ties in with the community. If you go back to the millennial question, think about what we learned as soon as Fayette County understood there was an issue. People began to ask why. Why are they leaving us? Why don't they stay? Yeah. And what you find out real quick, they don't mind density.
Right.
They love walkability.
They kind of like density.
They do like density. Live, work, play. Yeah. it all comes into what they want, and obviously there's got to be industry, places that they can work. But the other part of that you have to balance, and you have to understand that there's going to be some opposition to it, is the fact that the 30 or 40 years worth of history of the people that are living there today, that was some of the reasons that they came there. So there's two sides, but I think in the long run, you've got to begin to go up, and I think that suits the millennials.
That's right. Well, Brent, great information. Thanks for joining us today on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we'll put links to some of the major developments and information about the south side of Atlanta, so check it out. And thanks for being with us on Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show.